Good afternoon, Dr. Maslog. We've already admitted people and they're coming in.
Good afternoon.
Wow. All right. Your audio is good. Your framing is good. Right. We can wait until 1 o'clock and we'll start. Thank you.
What time is it?
Oh, we start at 1 o'clock, Dr. Maslog. It's 12:54 right now.
Oh, okay, we have about 5 minutes.
That's right.
Do we have a chance to see the audience, partly or individually, or what?
Yes, Dr. Maslog, we will be able to see the audience once we stop sharing the slides. And that will be possible also when we take our photo just after our question number 1 is, is done. Yes, Dr. Maslog. Hello, everyone. Would you like to say hi in the chat box and tell us where you're joining from? I'm Marge, and I'm joining from Quezon City. How about you?
Lord,
Hello.
Hello. So you can
Yes.
write in the chat box where you're joining from. Dr. Crispin, I know you're joining from Los Baños, right?
right. Did you say chat box? I have to.
No problem. You
I
can
can
just.
do it orally. Yeah. I'm now in. I am one of the fortunate ones in the time of this pandemic because I live in the middle of a forest, in the middle of Mount Makiling, which is a biodiversity center. When I go out for a walk every day, I meet only about 5 people and 6 dogs. And that's all the population that I get to meet every day outside of the house.
Well,
So we are safe from COVID.
that I was going to say, that keeps you safe, Dr. Maslog. How about
Yes.
Dr. Flor? Where are you joining us from, Dr. Flor?
Oh, I'm in Quezon City, New Manila. So
Mhm.
I'm living in a condo now,
I see.
11th floor, which has a
Ooh,
wonderful view,
I'm
panoramic
sure,
view. So I enjoy this
particularly in the
just
sun.
between Balete Drive and Domingo.
Wow, all
And
right. I'm
I'm
sure.
enjoying living here because it's easier to maintain than living in a house.
I,
Before,
I,
when my husband was alive, we live in a house with a large garden, and so that's a little difficult to
all right.
maintain.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock and we will begin. So if everyone is ready, right? Shall we begin? All right,
Okay.
on the 1 o'clock mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar titled Lifelong Learning, a Conversation with Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog, jointly organized by the Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research, Incorporated, or PACMRI, and the Philippine Association of Communication Educators, or PACE. I am delighted to have been given this opportunity to moderate this session. I am Marge Acosta, a founding member of the board of PACMRI and a proud fan and friend of our rock stars in Philippine communication who have gladly accepted my invitation to share their storied lives and stellar careers here in this virtual space. This is the sixth and last installment of Research Town Hall meetups planned by PACMRI for the year. I have to say that this is a most appropriate session to cap the topics on qualitative and quantitative research, critical and regional studies, and research dissemination, as our guests have been immersed, awarded, and more in all of those aforementioned areas. To formally open our meetup, I would like to call on Dr. Fernando Paragas, President of PACMRI. Dr. Paragas?
Hello everyone. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat and welcome to our webinar, Lifelong Learning, a Conversation with Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. Una sa lahat, pinasasalamatan ko sina Dr. Braid at Dr. Maslog sa pagtanggap sa ating imbitasyon na lalo nagpapaganda sa ating hapon ngayon. Alam po ninyo, marami na itong ating webinar, pero bihira na akong nervous yan. Pero this afternoon, I'm really nervous because we are in the presence of stars. So, ito po. In the history of scholarship, what we know now as communication and media studies as a discipline is quite young. In the Philippines, this means that many of our academic units are no more than half a century old, which means that some of you may have been fortunate to have been mentored by pioneers in our discipline. However, for many of us, we know our pioneers only by their name or through their work. Many of our pioneers have since been immortalized through their contributions to theory, research, and nation building. However, we are most fortunate to have two of our pioneers who are still with us, actively enriching our discipline and society. I am really happy that Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog are still paving the way for us. I often imagine what it must have been like over 50 years ago when scholars from the humanities, the social sciences, and other disciplines worked together to carve a niche that is now distinctly communication and media research. Everyone who worked during this period could be called pioneers, but few of them who worked at the forefront had since receded in the background, while only a select few have risen to become icons. This is where lifelong learning comes in. How do we not become Ningas Kogon, flaming brightly in the beginning, but fading just as quickly? How do we maintain our integrity when we find ourselves with unscrupulous people and in problematic situations? How do we sustain our faith in and contributions to our country and its development? How do we research our way through our purposeful life? Indeed, today we will learn from the best how to get started, contribute meaningfully, and remain relevant. Now, speaking of getting started, Bea, next slide, please. Let me invite you to the National Communication Research Conference, which the UP Department of Communication Research is organizing together with PACMRI, the Philippine Association for Communication Educators, or PACE, and the Philippines Communication Society. To be held this November 12 and 13, this year's NCRC has the theme Breaking Through Outbreaks and Breakdowns, Researching Communication and Media in the Pandemic. For details, please visit the Facebook page at NCRC Philippines. The NCRC will be our 10th monthly activity this year. In December, after NCRC, we will have our year-end activity and prepare for our General Assembly next year, where we will have our very first elections. I hope you have learned a lot from our webinars and town hall meetings, and that you will continue to support us by formally joining PACMRI, and we will release the membership payment procedures soon. In closing, I would like to thank Dean March Acosta for initiating, organizing, and moderating our webinar this afternoon. I would also like to thank Mark Lester Chico, newly elected PACE President, for bringing PACE on board as our partner this afternoon. It was really important that we work together as a show of force to honor Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. I would like to congratulate the new members of the PACE board as well, and we look forward to working with you more in the future. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo ngayong hapon. Mabuhay at padayon kay Dr. Braid at Dr. Maslog. Mabuhay at padayon sa ating lahat na mga mamanaliksik ng bayan. Back to you, Dr. Marge.
Maraming salamat. Mabuhay at padayon indeed sa ating lahat. All right, I'll just mention some house rules. We are already 52 in the Zoom room, and we want to make sure that we have a smooth flow of our virtual sharing here. So please kindly use your full name as your screen name to verify your attendance for the certificate. Number 2, please keep your audio and video on mute. Number 3, please type your questions or comments in the chat box. And in the Zoom, you may also raise your hand to be acknowledged by the moderator when we are already in the open forum. Next slide, please. For those who may be interested to get certificates and those who will be asking, know that certificates will be given to those who, number 1, pre-registered on or before October 26, 2021, would leave a comment or reaction in the event page in Facebook and complete the evaluation form after the event. The form will be should be submitted by 11:59 p.m. of October 27, 2021. All right, next slide. I think we're off to our main event, right? For those who are as excited as I am, we have reached the much awaited part of our event. Now I ask everyone here, need I introduce our speakers? I dare say that the positive reputation and image of our guests precede them. All right, so at this point, I'd like to ask Dr. Braid just to say hi. Dr. Braid, please say hi to our
Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, Marge. It's a pleasure to be engaged with you in this conversation on a very timely topic. So
All
I'm
right.
very glad that we have the presidents. Do you know that Dr. Maslog and I headed two of your other communication organizations, Dr. Of course, Maslog, PACE, and myself, Philippines Communication Society,
Of
which
course,
is
and we
and
are
I'm
still,
very pleased that PACMRI is linking with this organization.
yes, Dr. Braid, and we're very active members or board members of those three active organizations. All right,
Yes.
we'll get back to you, Dr. Braid. I'd like
Yes.
to call on Dr. Maslog just to say hi at this point. Dr. Maslog, would you like to say hi to our audience, both in the in Facebook live streaming and here in our virtual stage?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I cannot see you, but I guess you can see me. And I hope you don't notice the color of the shirt that I am wearing. Baka masyadong obvious.
All right, Dr. Maslog, at this point, I'd like to already start the ball rolling. I'm going to ask three questions. And we're starting with the first one, and this will be for the two of you, while the order of presentation would be Dr. Maslog first, and then I'll call on Dr. Braid. So the question is this: given your storied lives and stellar careers, please share with us the turning points that allowed you to find your niche in the field of communication and research. Next slide, please, Hannah, because I know that Dr. Maslog would like to start with this photo. Dr. Maslog, on to you.
I, as I said earlier, obvious ba? Beside me is my wife of 60 years or close to it. And we are very much still active and involved in the political life of our nation. You want me to continue? Or
Yes,
this is
please.
introduction?
Yes, please. This is already your time, Dr. Maslog, to already state the turning points in your career and in your life when you finally realize your niche in the field of communication and research. And if you'd like to see our audience, I'll request Hannah to now stop sharing. They've seen your pink photo. There you go. Go ahead, Dr. Maslog.
Okay. You were asking me about how I got into journalism and communication. How I got started.
That's correct. And the turning points in your
the turning points in my life. As far as I'm concerned, I have always been a journalist. Believe it or not, I was a high school reporter at age 16 in our high school paper. I was associate editor of our paper at age 17. I was editor of our high school paper at age 18. I graduated and went straight to journalism college at UST at the age of 19. I graduated from journalism at UST at age 24. And then my first job was as a journalist with Agence France Presse at the age of 24 until age 28, when I went abroad and pursued master's and doctorate degrees in journalism. So I guess you might say I'm a one-track mind, you know? And I think I am one of the few who knew from the beginning where I wanted to go and how to get there. I know that many people are always, shall we say, undecided in their early years. But in my case, I knew where I wanted to go, and I ended up in Silman. I taught journalism, and then I went to UP Los Baños. I taught mass communication and development communication, which are all very much related to my original love for journalism. And to sum up that part, uh, you will notice that journalism is two parts, two main parts. One is research. You have to research the facts before you can disseminate them. You don't disseminate false information. So that is a very cardinal principle of good journalism. You must have the facts. You must gather the facts. You must search for the facts before you can even start writing, speaking, broadcasting about them. So what a great difference between journalism in our days and so-called journalism during these times.
Yes,
That's
Dr.
my
Maslog.
first part. Yeah.
Yes, that's your first part. All right, so that's pretty much, as you said, now tracing your career in journalism that you were so sure when you were 16 years old, all the way to when you were 27 or 28. But after that, Dr. Maslog, you became also an educator, right? And
Right.
then once upon a time, you did share with me that you had to choose. Is it education or is it research? Why don't you share a little bit about that? Because I think that's still a turning point from your end. And I'd like our audience here to also know that side of you when you decided, would it be the
Yes.
academic field or would it be writing for me? Dr. Maslog,
Yeah.
please proceed.
I in my early life, I was always thinking after graduate school, I would go back to journalism and maybe become an editor of Manila newspaper or publisher. It was always that sort of image in my mind. And then by chance, I guess, when I was finishing my doctorate in the U.S., Silliman University opened a new school of journalism in the province in Dumaguete, and they needed someone to take over. I did, and being in the province, our emphasis was in community journalism, and being in the province also, I was getting all kinds of research support to study the phenomenon of provincial press, radio, as well as newspapers. So I did a lot of studies, all funded. Uh, Fundraisers during those days were very generous, and they gave me all the money I needed. And so I was going around the Philippines, interviewing editors and reporters and publishers, and I was able to publish a series of books on community journalism in the Philippines. And very quickly, I am sad to note that no one has followed my footsteps consistently. I have noticed some people doing research in community journalism, but they never followed up all the, shall we say, collection of knowledge about community journalism, which needs to be enriched from time to time.
Yes, Dr. Maslog. In fact, I think I'm one of those who benefited from your writings, the books that you've written about community journalism. I did not only learn that in the classroom, but I also started teaching about it. And yes, perhaps that is something that we should continue and inspire our students or practitioners here, no, to follow suit in your footsteps, no, on community journalism. All right. Thank you very much for sharing those highlights, Dr. Maslog. I'd like now to call Hannah to just project this photo as we now turn over the virtual stage to Dr. Flor Angel on the same question on highlights in her career that allowed her to find her niche in communication and research. Dr. Braid, on to you. Dr. Braid, please unmute. Kindly unmute. There you go. Thank
Yeah, let me start with the some of the trends in communication and my role or my participation in the activities following. Well, let me start by saying that I think that I was very fortunate to be at the place at the right time and the right place, when things were happening. So if I may seem to show that I have been involved in all of these things, it's because it's a fortuitous turn of events that I was there. Oh, but let me start with, since Chris started with high school, let me start with myself too. I went to a public school in Pangasinan, and I remember that I must have read all the books in the library. So I think that's one highlight of my life that I'm proud of. My fondness for reading. It was shown during the Japanese time when I had to retrieve a book in the house, so that when I returned to the what you'd call it, the safety shelter, a bullet, zoom on my ear, so this shrapnel hit, so I could feel the warmth of that. So that is an experience in my life that showed that my love for books started at a very early age. And then,
Sorry,
so-
did you say that a sharpnail hit you, Dr. Braid? I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes, a
Oh,
little bit.
goodness. Oh,
Yes.
goodness. Oh, wow. But
So-
wow, yes, what an experience. And
when
for a book.
I tell the story, they laugh at me for the love of books. Now, let us,
How is
however,
shrapnel? Where did the shrapnel come from?
well, the Americans, when MacArthur landed, in Dagupan, you remember that he landed in Dagupan.
It was
They
coming from.
dropped leaflets saying that you must evacuate. So we evacuated, and to a place which had a shelter, air raid shelter. And when I was in the shelter, I remember that I forgot the book. So I went to retrieve, and I was hit by the shrapnel because they were bombing the city to make sure that the Japanese are no longer there. So let me,
Unforgettable.
however, continue. I'd like to continue with the what happened in this. I started my professional career in the late 50s, in the early 50s, actually teaching for 6 years. And then I moved into radio and television. But those were the years of exploration. And I feel very enriched with the experiences because I was in theater, I went to art exhibits, participated in poetry reading. So my experience, my romance with Shakespeare and the Greek tragedies, I feel had helped me a lot, when I began to move into the more science-based activities. So those were the early. In the 60s to the mid 70s, this was when I did advanced studies at Syracuse. And there I've discovered quantitative and qualitative research and fell in love with qualitative research and nonverbal communication and that helped me a lot because after that, after my doctoral studies, I taught, I accepted an offer from the University of Hawaii and the East West Center, where I taught graduate and undergraduate studies in communication, research, intercultural communication, and that innovation studies, etc. At the same time, I held joint appointment with the East West Center, and that's where, at that time, population was the top, area of research. So we had a lot of funding, and the institutes were organized along communication, resource management, and other areas. So at that time, it offered me opportunity to move around Asia So I really immerse myself in some of the cultural happenings. And those were the days, when also when the McBride report, started to be, McBride report, as we know, is the Bible of communication. And it was written by a group of scholars and top people. And I was involved in some of them because we had a second committee that tried to implement some of the recommendations of the McBride report. And the mid-70s to 80s, I left the university after 5 years, took an offer by UNESCO at Sri Lanka, where I did manage a population communication project. There we did cross-cultural research, cross-cultural IEC, information education programs, moved around ethnic, it was at that time in a state of war. And so the challenge was great. We were functioning in a state of conflict as well as ethnic conflict. So not just war conflict, but ethnic conflict. So then it was the age of it was the new, remember the new communication order, where the countries in the East, the South, complained about the two-way flow, one-way flow of communication. And we were very involved with it. At that time, I had joined we had started together with a group of presidents of universities who became trustees of the Asian Institute of Journalism. But prior to that, I taught at the East West, at University of UPLB in Los Baños, for about 4 or 5 years, stint at the Development Academy. And this is where they started the book writing. One of the books there, Communication for Productivity, was a product of some of our training and of journalists and information officers all over Asia. It was also, I think, at that time, since I'm talking about I think now let me go to the mid 80s to the 90s, which was the time that after Ninoy arrived, I joined the Parliament of the Streets. And then also, as you know, we had the EDSA, which before EDSA, by the way, a group headed by, of course, Egi Apostol invited us, and I joined Delhi Inquirer and became the president for a year and a half, because after that, or before the year ended, I was asked to be a member of the Constitutional Commission. What I'm saying is that these experiences all were opportunities of discovering how we can use journalism to be able to pursue the problems of fledgling democracy, which was what was established after the EDSA one, as well as also the response to some of the needs for different kind of journalism. So at that time, UNESCO was very involved in community media, and we were called to help. And our institute, which got involved in these activities, got involved also in training community leaders, and we started with the labor station in Cebu and other places. So this is our small contribution to the growth of community media, because let me acknowledge that when we talk of community media, Dr. Maslog, it certainly comes at the top as the icon, And I think a picture will be shown later on with other icons like Louis Tabing, who is organized Stambuli, another experiment in community media. So here, I think at that age, the institute was involved in historical, in an examination of history because of we celebrated the Philippine Revolution anniversary. And our institute was involved in producing, in helping produce books and manuscripts where we got social scientists and historians to rewrite history. So our contribution, and we found that in all of this, the interaction we had with historians and social scientists had enriched my own perception and knowledge of communication, and I will mention that maybe later. It was the age also of distance learning, and we somehow found that we were also involved as in the Ateneo Marinol educational TV, which lasted for about 30 years. But I stayed on for about only 2 years because I went to the US for my studies. But this was a project that was important, and I'm sorry when it finally had to fade out because the grant from Ford Foundation and Asia Foundation had already been utilized. And the government was not at that time unwilling and unaware of the potential of education, of distance learning, not realizing that we will have a pandemic where distance learning will be utilized. But anyway, my training there had helped me also. I had a World Bank consultancy, again, back to Sri Lanka, and to share my experiences in the organization of distance learning. I think now in the age of the 90s to 2000, in the age of internet, my participation had been the fact that I chaired the UNESCO communication committee here, where we did a lot of, where UNESCO provided grants for us to be able to carry on activities. So we did not just in communication, one study is a study in culture of impunity and the killings of journalists. And again there, Dr. Maslog and I collaborated. Now let me just say that one area that was very important where Dr. Maslog and I were also there, we might talk about it later, was a Fisher Folk project. It was actually a 6-year project using what we utilize IEC. They said that it's the biggest project in the IEC, because it combined not just training, but the production of materials, advocacy, training of Fisher Folk to be aware of some of the threats in the environment, resource management. And the Fisher Folk did very well. We'll maybe talk about that later, because it's very important in the light of West Philippine Sea that if we had more time, maybe we could have trained them to be able to defend the West Philippine Sea. And here, I think part of our activities during that decade was judicial reform, where we were involved. It was a 6-year project, but we were involved in about 3 to 4 years at the beginning, using communication in consultation. We brought down the justices, Supreme Court justices, down to the bundoks to be able to consult with the beneficiaries. And I think that was a very useful exercise, as well as designing a project where you see communication as a very important component in justice, in access to justice. That where it fails when in the area of the six actors: prosecutor, the lawyer, the social worker, and finally the judge. It isn't the prosecutors, the fiscal's office, where the justice lagged. And communication was shown to have helped in some way in speeding the process of access to justice. Because let me share that in our consultations with the people who denied justice, they said that they would prefer justice even to food, because if they had justice, they would have access to food. So this is how important justice is in our society. So that is that. Now we find ourselves now, and I think maybe our colleagues here who are with us may wish to discuss some of the threats and the promises in the new communication order, which is where internet reigns. But however, where we are very dependent on technology, we had at this stage of our life, the 2000, this decade, we see the organizative development of the public sphere, meaning the people trying to organize and put together various systems and mechanisms in where they can communicate one-on-one, whether it's in public market, in whatever, barber shop, but the public sphere is very important. I think it's the public sphere and the energy we put into it that can somehow negate the negative outcomes or negative aspects of communication, internet and communication technology. So I would like to end there by saying, therefore, that that it's for those starting their careers in communication research, that it is trying to take advantage of every moment. Opportunities come, but we have to seize the moment so that we can and listen. So one of the important learnings is listening skills. We learn because that's where we are able to move forward. So I think I'll end there. I had my 5 minutes.
Wow, I have to say that the sharing of Dr. Braid here, as already reflected in our chat box, is really what is the epitome of oral history. This is oral history. We've traced from Dr. Maslog to Dr. Braid's sharing 60 years of experience. And I sense that there are some overlapping events in your lives, but that's not yet that's not yet what we're going to talk about. And I feel that there's a deja vu in the sharing, because these are the subject matters that that we had to study in school and then eventually had to teach as grounding to what the new communication really is now. I'd like to just read what comments we have here in the FB from Je Eufemiano. The comment is the true essence of media. I think this really goes to you, Dr. Maslog and Dr. Braid, that you are the essence of media, the true essence of media. And from Olena Hill, she is saying, we stand alongside you, Dr. Maslog. So I think there will be people, there will be practitioners, there will be students who will follow your footsteps. Now, we are on to our second question, but before that, we would like everyone at this point to be ready for a photo opportunity with our rock star. So what we're going to do here is request everyone to turn on their videos, and then we'll stop sharing so that we can request Dr. Dr. Hernan here to take our photo. Dr. Hernan, from your end, please cue us.
Okay, let's just give everyone a second to turn on their camera. So there are two panels. So thank you everyone for attending again while everyone is turning on the camera. We have 65 in Facebook and 63 here in Zoom. So thank you very much everyone for attending. Okay, magaganda at mga pogi na ba ang lahat? Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, second panels, please hold your smile. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Now, what we'd like to request is that everyone make sure that their cameras and their microphones are off so that we can continue with our smooth flow of the webinar. So at this point, what I'd like now to
Cannot hear you.
all right, sorry about that. I'd like to now ask our second question to our guest speakers. Number 2 question, and I'd like to start off with Dr. Braid in sharing. There are many instances through the years that your paths would cross. Tell us more about it, particularly in research. Picking up from your narrative, what would you say to our audience about research as a lifelong learning? Sorry, I'd like to take back what I said. Dr. Braid, if you can just hold your sharing, and let's switch now back to Dr. Maslog. Dr.
Yeah.
Maslog, go on ahead. When did your paths cross? Because that's something that I think everyone would like to hear as part of our oral history here. Because somehow in your stories, we already saw the overlaps. Go ahead, Dr. Maslog.
Thank you, Marge. This is something that probably does not happen to many other people. But in the case of my young and beautiful friend, Flor Braid, and
I'm
Our
older than you.
our paths have always crossed. And I attribute this to Tadhana. I don't know why, but we more or less got started in our careers in the same place, Silliman University. Flor had just come to university to teach in the new school of journalism, which the university was starting. And she brought her experience in broadcasting from Dagupan, was it? From Luzon. And so she was our first teacher in radio and broadcasting at the newly established School of Journalism at Silliman University. And then the university were looking around, recruiting for someone to become the first director of the School of Journalism at Silliman University. After the American visiting professor had established the framework for the program as well as the administrative structure, they were looking for a Filipino to come in and take over. And it so happened I was finishing my doctorate at the University of Minnesota, and the Asia Foundation, with whom I was working in San Francisco when I was finishing my doctorate, recommended me. So I had a very good endorser for that position from my former employer, the Asia Foundation. So the university got me. I came in and I met Flor. She had just finished a year of teaching broadcasting at Silliman University. And then she left for her doctorate at Syracuse University. And then I forgot about her for 1, 2, 3, I think about 3, yeah, 3 years. And then I was invited to the East West Center to attend a conference there. No less than Dr. Wilbur Schramm, if you know Dr. Schramm, was
Of course.
he was our the presider of that conference, and I had a very good chance of rubbing elbows with him in a literal sense. You know, he was a very nice fellow, and he saw me as a young person, and he saw me as very nervous at attending and talking at the conference, and he would always come in and reply to questions which he thought I could not answer. He was not fatherly, you know. It's very, you know, this is my personal experience with Dr. Schramm. Anyway, long story short, I came back from when I was at the SOS Center, and in between sessions, I walked around the center, and then I peeked in one room, and I saw there Flor Angel Braid, Flor Angel Rosario, that was her maiden name, Braid, and she was sitting at the desk, and I said, "What are you doing here?" I did not realize that she had finished her doctorate and she was coming to East West Center for her, I think, her first job, and she was doing population research. That's the name of the game. At that time, population was the big issue. It still is now, by incidentally, and we are just trying to put it in a corner. But that is the biggest problem even today of the Philippines. We have too many people, and we cannot give them enough food. Anyway, side issue. So I met Flor, and again, long story short, we caught up, and Dr. Gloria Feliciano was there.
Yeah.
She was attending the same conference I was attending.
The
And
legends. You're
and she
mentioning
was-
the legends.
She was starstruck by Dr. Schramm. This is a secret that I do not tell everyone. She was starstruck by Dr. Schramm, and she would confide to us, her contemporaries. Anyway, Flora was the generous host. She invited us. I don't know if Flora remembers. She invited us together with her cousins to a picnic in Honolulu, somewhere out of town, in the Pacific. We were watching the Pacific and its waves roll as we were having a picnic on the shore. I don't know if Flor Braid remembers that, but I remember that because I was a guest, and Gloria Feliciano was there with us, and we had a good time. Although we did not swim because the waves were too big. But we enjoyed the good food, and then I came back to the Philippines, and again forgot about Flor Braid. And then I did not realize that from Hawaii she went to Sri Lanka, and she was there for a long time. I went back to Siliman, and then I left Siliman and went to UP Los Baños. And there I was teaching, and that is where I met Flor Braid again. I said, "You again?" I could never get rid of her, I guess, I suppose. But this
But
is
that's
just the
not the
beginning.
end.
This is a long story. Don't relax. I'm just in the beginning of the story. But not to worry. I'll try to make it short. A good journalist always knows how to give the gist of his story. Anyway, so we were there. We were teaching, and then she invited me to teach at the Asian Institute of Journalism, the new institute which she founded, which was offering a master's degree, one of the few institutions offering a master's degree. And I was teaching there. Well, she was paying me enough, I guess, for a new institution. And one of my students, do you know him? Ramon Tuason. He was
Another legend.
another legend. So I'm giving rise to legends. So he was my student at the AIJ, and we have always been in touch over the years. And then, long story short, again, I retired from UP Los Baños, and the day after I retired from UPLB, Flor and Ramon invited me to the university and offered me twice my salary at UPLB. So after retirement from UPLB, I was given twice the salary. This is a secret I did not tell Flor. I said to myself, Flor, you're offering me too much, I would have accepted it at half the price, but I didn't tell her. So
Very
again,
wise.
twice my salary at UP Los Baños. Now you know, Flor. So you cannot take it back. But I was enjoying double the salary at the same effort. And that is when I really got into DevCom in action. For one whole year, we were going around the country visiting the
Fisher Folk.
fisher folk, what do you call those,
Resource management.
the reservation for
Yeah.
fisheries, the
Yeah.
preserve, the fisheries areas
Yeah.
which were declared off limits to
Yeah. Yeah.
outside fishers.
Yeah.
And we went around 8 of them around the country from north to south. And that was DevCom in action. We would stay there for a week at a time in Palawan, in Misamis, Oriental,
Mindanao also.
in Leyte,
Davao.
in the 100 Islands, in Davao, etc.
Bicol.
Yeah,
Bicol.
I really enjoyed that. For twice the salary I was getting at Siliman, at DevCom, which Flor was giving me. So thank you, Flor. Now I have the time to thank you for that opportunity. And during that time, I was also involved with the projects that Flor was telling you about. We had the Supreme Court, so we were interviewing the Supreme Court people. And we had the BIR, Bureau of Internal Revenue.
Yes.
So we studied the Bureau of Internal Revenue. And we have the fisheries. And so we went around the country. It was really a very enjoyable time.
Yeah.
And of course, in consultancy, the major component is research. And that
Yes.
is on the basis for any
Yeah.
action that you take. So
Yeah.
that's the importance of research. I sometimes I wonder whether the present government, pardon my political leanings, whether the present government indulges in research before doing their projects. But during our time, we were doing research for these institutions, and they were using this as the basis for reforming the Supreme Court, for reforming their program for fisher folks, for BIR reforming their institution. So research is a very important component, and Flora Braid and I were in the midst of that, and with that I am always thankful. So the other point is that the research does not stop after your retirement, and so that is how our lives intersected, Flora Braid and I, from Siliman to the ISWE Center, to DevCom, to all over the Philippines.
And and
and
you are
Tadhana.
and you are here in this virtual space again,
Right.
sharing your life
Yeah.
experiences. Of course, there will be areas that Dr. Braid can still fill in, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
at this point, I'd like to invite Dr. Braid to fill in the stories, the narratives of Dr. Maslog. You use the word, Dr. Maslog, tadhana, while Dr. Braid said she was in the right place at the right time. Isn't that the same too? And this,
Yes.
yes, and we're
Faith.
hearing two,
Faith.
yes, two people here now, joined by by the events in their lives, but particularly in the field of communication and research. What else could you add there, Dr. Braid, in the story of where your lives intersected? Yeah.
Yes. Well, first, I think Chris filled in a very important component of communication, and that is the history. He did the first history of communication. Of course, John Lent, one of our colleagues, did just the press, but uh, uh, Chris has been doing a continuing research on the history. So that is his contribution. So we filled in other aspects of communication. So I think that's a partnership. No? I think also maybe he did mention, but with these efforts had been rewarded by organizations, and AMIC, where he chairs now, which he chairs now, the most prestigious research organization in Asia. Uh, we were both awardees, you know, and we were both awardees too of the TOEFL quiz, you know. So that is a recognition of our complementariness, you know, that we filled in some need in nation building, you know, which is very important. And I think that's what we'd like to stress, that communication, if we look back, uh, whether it's the process of doing it, especially the process of introducing participatory research, you know, where you participate and you engage, you know. And I think right now the concept of dialogue is so important in terms of fostering not just national unity, but also international unity. You know? That the communicators would be ahead in terms of being able to do that. We were also both with this Philippine Social Science Council, no? So we added that, and the concept of interdisciplinarity has been started by communication. That communication is the first social science discipline that's very interdisciplinary, and later economics, so you know, sociology, psychology, and others started realizing that their discipline cannot stand alone. We have to communicate. We have to. So I think uh, our experience in both in terms of academic learning as well as grassroots learning, uh, we literally cross, we think, rivers, and you know, climb mountains. You know, in one research we did, we listened to the our friends, the NPA. We didn't realize they were there, but they were trying to observe whether government projects really work. You know? Again, I noticed that too when we were doing consultation during after the drafting of the Constitution. We had to validate, or we had to get input before revising. We went as far as Tawi-Tawi and the deep communities in Mindanao, Suluan area, and more than 2/3 of the people who were listening to us were NPA. You know, they couldn't vote. You know, but they were trying to learn. I think what I'm not defending them. I'm not my, but what I've observed in my field observing work is that So they were always there, and they didn't bother us. And they were trying, they were using their ears to listen hard and to try very hard. My husband, who was an FAO, I said, but when he retired, we came back, he became a consultant of Canadian International Development on cooperatives in the most remote areas of Cagayan Valley, all over Cagayan area. And he says that these guides were NPA, they were helping him in fact, where he didn't know places. So that's just a side story. But what I'm trying to say is that we were fortunate in, actually we were very fortunate in being able to observe the fisher folk who are the poorest of the poor. And the project after 6 years showed some improvement, not just in productivity, but in being able to, I think a number of representatives of the fisher folks that we had engaged with help write the fisheries code. So they were involved, and I think and many of these resource projects had really improved, whether mangroves, the artificial reefs, all of these things that they tried to uh, organize, and all communities that they organized all work. They were able to provide extra livelihood during non-fishing seasons. So I think in our own way, where we can't see, it's very difficult really to communication. Sometimes are frustrated because they can't see the effect of their, economists. They had measurements. They have, the mathematics of, and as well as other disciplines. But communication effectiveness of is difficult to measure. But you have to really look back and listen and use your heart in looking in to see the effectiveness of your efforts. And I think the fact that we were privileged to listen to the most, to the poorest, in other words, this, when we talk of the heart of development and social justice, these are the folks that we responded to. And I think so for that we are very happy. I think that's all. I think I will.
Yes.
I'll share more during the other question.
Yes. And
Marge,
yes, go ahead, Dr. Maslog, if you
yeah,
wish to add something. Yes.
on this second topic, I want to add a couple of things to what Floor Braid was saying
Go ahead.
before we go to the last topic.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Maslog.
Dr. Braid was talking about their experience with the NPAs, good for her. She's brave, Let me just share with you that I was also working for 2 years with the Mindanao Peace Panel under Ambassador Pelaez. And I was also doing press work with the provincial media all over the Philippines, especially in Mindanao, all the way to Zamboanga, to Davao,
Yeah.
to Cotabato, to Jolo, and we organized seminars, workshops for them. And so we were conducting surveys on what people thought about the peace agreement between Normi Soari and Korea Fino. So before, and then also about the Constitution. So we were doing that and doing interviews right at the grassroots. And we knew before the plebiscite that the Constitution would be approved, that the people would approve the peace agreements, etc. So that's the kind of work that research, can be doing for the national government. Doing that kind of research and helping come up with data that will be used as basis for decisions by the government that is a very important part,
Mhm.
important role of
Yeah.
research. No? And the other point I just want to make from our relationship with Floor is that I believe in the saying or in the truth that one should not burn his bridges behind him. I know that that is sometimes a problem among academics, and they disagree, and some of them decide to burn their bridges. Sometimes you will meet that person on the other side of the country and the bridge has been burned. Um, that's all I want to say.
All right.
Whoever is in that situation, that is all I can say.
All right.
Never
Wow.
burn your bridges.
Yes. So wise words from
Yeah.
our stellar the legends, no? And note, Dr. Maslog and Dr. Braid, that there are also comments, and I wouldn't want to miss mentioning the comments from our colleagues, from the audience that are both in the Zoom and in Facebook, and there are also questions that are now being posted, which we will wait to be answered when we get into the open forum. But just right now, from our virtual space here, there are comments like from Lilibeth Galvez, what a privilege to see virtually Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. And she's coming all the way from Mati, Davao Oriental. There's going to be a question later on, but I will post that in the open forum. And from FB also, we have from Miss Valera, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog, for your contribution in the field of media, communication, and research. And also extending congratulations and kudos to PACMRI for bringing both of you in this great conversation. From Dr. Joyce Ariola, who you probably know, no? Two of the founding heroes of the communication discipline. I just needed to mention that for Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog, who probably will not be able to see that. We don't see that because it's in FB, if I'm not mistaken. And from Aid Aguilar, thank you, Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. And then there's going to be like one or two questions that will be posted later on. From Luz Urquiola, good afternoon. Extremely pleased to listen to Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. All right. Okay,
Uh,
from Riza Barbie Castillo, just one Castillo. I am also one of those who benefited from the scholarly works of Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. Thank you so much. Dr. Maslog, you wanted to say
yes,
something.
a couple of other things. Sorry, I was taking down notes and I just saw this. Two two other thoughts. Um, we were both founders. No? Those of you who are members of PACE, I was a founding member of PACE. We organized PACE in 1975 in Baguio and Batangas, Laurel, Batangas. And so I'm one of the original members of PACE. AMIC also, I invite you to join the AMIC conference. I was also a founding member of AMIC. And so I invite you to the conference coming up next month. And Dr. Braid was a founding member of Philippine Communication Society, as I was founding member of Philippine Association of Communication Educators. So that's the privilege of being old.
Yeah.
You cannot help but become a founder.
Yeah.
Well and good, because now everyone is so excited, thankful that we are here together in this virtual space where we are but members, but eventually, no, I'm sure they will become board members too, as those who retire, pass on the baton or the torch, no, to the next generation. All right, at this point, I'd like to move on to our third and last question. And this is about you being living legends and stalwarts of Philippine communication. You have sustained and preserved your relevance in the field. To what do you attribute this to? Dr. Braid, you see the slide in front of you.
Yes.
This is about you sustaining and preserving your relevance in the field. This is about you after retirement, or do you believe in the word retirement? Because I don't think you ever retired, and because you're
No.
still so active in your young age now. So Dr. Braid, on to you.
Yeah. What do I say?
Yeah, so how do you now, what do you attribute? The fact that you are still
Well,
relevant, you're able to preserve,
I think
yeah, and sustain.
tenacity. You know, you push and you fail, no, you but you stand again and do, no. So it's that I think much of whatever I actually am embarrassed when people describe me, and I'm sure Chris feels the same as icons or legends, you know.
Oh, so
They
sorry if
were
you're
just, you
embarrassed.
know, I think we became, we pursued our passion, and we pursued it without flinching whenever we fail. So failure has been a part of our journey, but whenever we fall, we rise again, and I think so. That's one. Then second is I mentioned it earlier, but I want to repeat that what's very important is for many communicators, they focus on the source. They tell, they show, they manage, they teach, but it is not, no? You come in after listening, after using all your powers of awareness, mindfulness, uh, and I think to me that is what is. So what I have done is a product of my awareness of what is happening around the world. I continue to monitor everything now. No, I'm glad that we have Google, but I also add other channels in terms of in terms of sourcing information about what is happening. So communicators must be totally aware, must be totally immersed. Actually, I mentioned this in my last column of the main attribute of all Nobel laureates, that they are utterly immersed. No, I'm not putting ourselves in the category of these people who belong to the pantheons of gods and goddesses, but I feel that I also, whenever I take up something, I'm totally immersed in it. So this is what is, and part of it is I always use spirituality. You know, some people, philosophers, sometimes neglect this, but whenever I embark on something, I ask the Lord, you know, to please help me being able to paddle this hurdle, you know, that I'm meeting. So this is what I can share. I think part of being able to achieve something is a consequence of being totally involved in the situation. You can't give anything partial attention, and
And
communicators must learn.
and I guess, Dr. Braid, as we look into the number of books that you've authored and edited, and the topics that are still relevant from then until now, it is about you engaging, it is about you immersing, but also being mindful in the way that you were able to extract or get that information. Let's move to the next slide. Dr. Braid, we're just so happy with all of this sharing. And you did
Yeah.
say, no, how about this? How long have you been part of the Manila Bulletin and Philippine
Yeah,
Daily Inquirer
yeah.
for your
I,
columns?
I started in '97, about 35 years, and for a long time until 2 months, 3 months ago, I was writing twice a week. And then I decided, I said, if I keep up, I should only write once a week. It's very difficult now to keep up even with once a week. You remember your age. I'm 90. I turned 90. So when Chris was kidding me, says my young, I'm older than you, Chris, maybe by a few months, but I'm still older. But anyway, I wish that some of you listen with, read my column. I have been writing about also my own perception of what should be, and I think it is. I always dwell with the attitudinal, with the more than knowledge. I always say that a learned person must have good knowledge. As a communicator, you have good knowledge. And for skills, you have to demonstrate it. But most important, what drives the skills, the behavior, is the heart, the attitudes, your own. So I'm very concerned about concepts of dialogue, mindfulness, and exchange, public sphere. This is what I am. I didn't say much about it, but all of this merge all the learnings, merge into a lesson. And the lesson I have learned from all of this is the need for alternative. Yeah, those who have been reading my column would note that most of my topics are on alternative. We need an alternative education, learning system, alternative media, alternative values, alternative way of thinking.
I guess that's why your opinion column is pagbabago. Am I correct,
yes.
Doctor? So the alternative. So you'd like to present. You'd like to present what could still be. It's innovation. It's alternative, right, Doctor?
Yeah.
Dr. Braid. And so, was there any innovation in terms of your own interest after all this involvement? Because you did say, Dr. Braid, that in the beginning you were in the arts, and until you found yourself immersed in communication, in journalism, in development communication. And so I'd like to just request Hannah, just to continue your story. This next slide, is this going full circle, Dr. Braid?
Yeah.
You are an artist, you are in the humanities, you found yourself in communication, research, qualitative, quantitative. And here, friends, you see the paintings of Dr. Braid. Dr. Braid, share with us what are the topics? Where are these paintings? Are they all hanging in your in your condominium? Share us.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Braid.
Yeah. All of this, by the way, I have. This is only a selection, and 9 out of 195 paintings I have. Some have been given away to friends. Some have been sold, and
I'm waiting for
these
mine.
ones I've chosen are part of the 30 social issues topics. Many of the things I've painted about mother and child, flowers, environment. But I've painted this. Now let me just explain this, because this is part of communication. A girl vending sampaguita, and here her eyes show indifference. Ito na lang, I've been doing this, no more. I'm not bitter anymore. It's indifference. That is what is communicating. And this, of course, is very, obvious. It's whether they say that we have a free press, we're still silence. I'm being as political now, but many, because of the environment of fear, are silenced. They self-censor. So they put a padlock on there, even it's self-padlocking, freedom of the press. And then here, of course, this is a story of our women in the First Folk community. Some of this is a picture of some of the domestic wives of people who have come back because they found that their husbands, fisher folk, were now earning a little more. And this because of the project of fisher folk communities. So they came back and they also engaged in drying fish and selling them, you know. And here, this is very obvious. The juxtapose between high rise and the Cariton. You know, you can always sweep. And you see this juxtaposition everywhere, you know, the wealth and the utterly
Poverty.
deprived.
Yes,
The
yes.
gap,
Mhm.
the gap between those who have and those. And this is the West Philippine Sea. The Chinese militia looking over the fisher folk, poor fisher folk. No? And this is, of course, the suspected smartmatic, you know. So see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, coming, the ballot coming out. And here is where Chris and I have been involved in fostering peace between the other side and us, and the what goes with it. And here is my concept of sustainable development. Just small, this is an abstraction really. You know, children or not. The knowledge, if you enlarge this, we have their knowledge, cooperatives, access to justice, access to information, as all the ingredients needed for sustainable development. And here is again environmental sustainable development, a human being, you know, under a tree. And here is a girl coming out of payatas. Nothing more. Wala, maski na baso, maski na glass, maski na bags or plastic bags, no, nothing anymore left for her. But still she comes out, still ready to conquer the world. So I try to demonstrate here how I perceive social realities. You know, there are things I cannot say, so I just resort to painting. And I think increasingly now, we're losing the photograph and paintings as a way of communicating, you know, activism, you know. So my teacher calls me an artivist because I'm
How
an
nice.
activist, an active.
Yes,
and,
coming
yeah.
together of two
But,
artists and activists. Yes.
I was asked how much I'm not going to tell you how much they are, but they may seem unaffordable, but I have pledged this towards the children, deprived children with very promising scholarships for deprived children to see them through high school and even college, you know. So I'll add to this, but I'd like to make it my legacy to future generations.
Thank
So,
you for your generosity.
Let's not take care anymore of those who are already in you know, engaged in profit. But there are many children that deprived their lying, and I think most of us cry out. So that's it.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's the first time
Very
I'm
good.
hearing that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, indeed. It's the first time I'm hearing
I
Dr.
wonder
Braid.
if there's any painting there that I can afford.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll show you some of the others maybe. I don't know if you like this, but this is just
I like the three fisherwomen.
Uh,
I like the three fisherwomen by the boat.
oh, this has been sold, by the way.
Yes. I was going to
been
say,
sold.
Dr. Braid, that it's the first time I'm hearing that you are actually, well, they come with the price, but it's to sustain, no, the scholarship
Yes.
of underprivileged but very worthy, very intelligent young girls, children. So thank you. God bless your heart, Dr. Braid.
I was told by my teacher, by the way, who taught us this. Now we did this in workshop. Not to underprice, because when you underprice, it's not also valued very much. So that's
Mhm.
what it's not really overpriced, because Heart Evangelista charges her cheapest painting is 1 million, no, to the rest are 5 million, 10 million, and it is just so that if you don't, people don't appreciate it when you say, oh, I just got this for so much, oh, then
Ah,
that's what.
yes, we understand, of
Pero okay
course.
lang kung ibigay, ano?
Huh?
Gift daw po, gift.
Gift. Oh.
Gift,
Huh?
okay lang po ba daw ibigay nyo kay Dr. Maslog as a gift?
Yeah.
All right.
After all, he's my
Thank you, Mark.
twin. He was twin brother in
Twin brother,
the
how nice.
journey.
How nice. How
Yeah.
nice to actually use that
Yeah.
term, twin brother. All right, on to you, Dr. Maslog. We'll move to the next slide. Thank you very much, Dr. Braid. We'll move to the next slide. And here you see Dr. Maslog in a headdress. And we'll let Dr. Maslog tell us the story behind this. There will be more photos that will be narrated by Dr. Maslog. We have a few and then so that we can move on to our forum for the open forum. But Dr. Maslog, this is your time. Share with
Okay.
us now
you,
that
thank
you
you,
are in
Mark.
that part of your retirement. Go ahead, Dr. Maslog.
I have a prepared outline for life after retirement, but I can start with this picture first. So this is part of that story, but I will go back and tell it in a logical narrative form. But this is that's me, huh? I'm wearing the Indian chief's headdress, and this was given to me by the two American Indians on my left and my right. And this is a real Indian ceremony in which they adopted me as an American Indian brother and said I was now an Indian. And if I die, I will be welcome in the Indian heaven. And the first thing that the God will ask will be, what is your Indian name? And I will tell them, my Indian name is Mini Lusaha. The N is silent, and it means swift flowing water. And this name was given to me in a very elaborate Indian ceremony where a song was composed in my honor, and he was chanting and dancing around us, and we were sitting in the middle with the head skull of a bull in front of us, and incense burning, and I was really impressed. I was speechless for about 30 minutes as my Indian brothers and sisters were around dancing the tribal dance in front and around me. But this was just one of the highlights of my life after retirement. You can ask me questions about this later. So, Marge, what is
Let's
your
move.
pleasure?
Yes, we can move to the next slide because I think this one also came in the time when you were not yet retired, but you continued writing. So, Dr. Maslog, there will
Towards
be
my
around.
retirement, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, before that, maybe you can take it off it might distract them. Can you first take it out before I talk, because it might distract their attention.
Okay, we'll just show the slides, Dr. Maslog, so that at least your narrative will be based on the slide. So this is a photo of the collection of books of Dr. Maslog. What's the next slide, Hannah? And again, not just to go through the listing of available books for reference, and then I think this is the last slide, no, Hannah,
Right.
for the books
Yeah,
of Dr.
yeah.
Mas. All right, so we'll put down the sharing first, the slides. Dr.
Yeah.
Mas would like to
We
speak
can go back
our
to this
audience.
later. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anyway, in 1999, I was given the honor of a retirement ceremony at UP Los Baños, where I was teaching for 19 years. And so people were asking me in sympathy, "Musta? Anong gagawin mo na ngayon? Wala ka nang gagawin. Manonood ka lang ng TV in front of the television set. Manonood ka na lang ng sine. Sabi ko, no way. No way. I'm not going to sit down in front of the TV all day and watch the world go by. I have known about a dozen friends who were looking to their retirement years. And 5 years after retirement, they were gone. Why? Because they were sitting in front of their TV all day. Can you imagine that? What happens to your blood circulation? What happens to your muscles? What happens to your brains? What happens to your relationship with people? You are there in the midst, in the room, thinking about yourself and the next meal. Where is it going to come from? Anong ulam ko mamaya, etc. Can you imagine that as the life after retirement? So I said, that's not going to be my life, you know. I said, life after retirement to me must be active, adaptive, and giving. Those are the three words I summarized. I said active. I'm not going to sit in front of the TV and watch the world go by. I will still be walking around. I was playing tennis until I was 80 years old. And yes, good tennis, huh? I can beat my grandson. Of course, he was not a good player. Anyway, I was teaching him one day how to play tennis. I was very mayabang, you know. Sabi ko, champion ako nung araw, ha, nung ako'y tennis player pa. So I was teaching him at the age of 81. So I noticed I could not hit the ball anymore. The ball were too slow. My racket would go too fast. You know? So finally, I realized I had lost my touch. And I was, napahiya ako sa aking apo. Sabi ko, kayo na lang mag-tennis ng father mo. Mahirap ang inyong bola, mabagal.
So, kasalanan ng bola.
So I gave up. That was 10 years ago. But I was playing tennis 3 to 4 times a day when I was
Awesome.
active in my profession. I
That
was
was
running to
great.
the tennis court at 4 o'clock. Bahala na
Wow.
sila. I will go back at night, of course, to finish the work. But at 4 o'clock, I was at the tennis court, playing
Great.
tennis
Wow.
with the deans and the professors. Or
Wow.
yeah,
Awesome.
that's true. That's true. You like, your body looks for it. So can you imagine if you are playing, all your bodily sensors are working, respiratory system, blood system, muscle system, brain system, all the systems. There are 5 systems in the human body. They're all active when you're playing tennis, whatever the sport is. So I did not stop that until I was 80 years old. So the other part of that is that it's not just physical activities, it's mental activities. Even if you play tennis,
Agree.
even if you play tennis, you come home, you are tired, you want to sleep. So very lazy din ang brain mo. Your brain will atrophy. So I said, reading, yes, but of course, you know, reading is passive. Writing is creative. So your brain exercises more when you are doing something with your brain. Painting, your senses. Writing anything that involves logic. So I continued writing my columns at first, no? And so my columns appear in Inquirer every now and then. And I continued writing science columns for SciDevNet and a London-based science website. And that's for income. They pay me $200 every, or $250 a column, one a month. You know? So that's how I support myself. You know? My wife says, you have to support yourself. Okay lang. Sige, I will support myself. Para sa akin na ito, ha?
Great. Great.
Anyway, so I continue. I have that income from writing my column. So my books are for something else. So I said, I will continue to write books because in the Philippines, The problem is enough instructional materials for our students. We always use foreign authors. No? Ngayon, Google na. Wala namang Tagalog sa Google yata eh. I have not found any material in Tagalog in Google. So this all is foreign. Kailangan natin something native, something local to educate our local students based on our own wisdom and on our own experience. We need these textbooks. We need this instructional material. So I said, I will continue that. So now I have written 39 books on various aspects of communication. I have a style book. I have an introduction to communication. I have ethnic reporting. I have peace reporting, etc., etc. I will come to that later. Anyway, so writing books, being active, that's how you become, how you live longer. So I will be 90. Braid is very mayabang. Sinasabi na 19 na raw siya. But I will be 90 on December 5. So
Twins
you,
talaga kayo. Twins talaga kayo.
You prepare your gift. I will tell you.
Oh, Dr.
what to give
Braid, you have to prepare your gift on the for the 90th birthday
December
of
5. And we
December
will
5.
inaugurate, AMIC will inaugurate on that day my latest book, A History of Asian Mass Communication. This is my story of the founding of this organization, of which I was a part. And we will book launch it on December 5. And of course, we will sell the books to go towards AMIC. Anyway, so that's the advice on being active, being active. So the other advice I want to give is adapt. You must adapt to the environment. You must adapt to the new technology. In 1990, we switched to the digital technology. We switched to computers. We switched to email. And I know a friend of mine who said, no way, Jose, am I going that way? He refused the computer that his family bought for him. He refused to write his letters in email. So every day I would see him walking to the post office to mail his letter and to look for letters addressed to him. Finally, I think one day he found out that people were no longer writing letters sent by email. So he lost track of his place in the world. So I adapted to email, and I was writing email letters to my wife in Japan at that time. She was there for 1 year working on her PhD. And she would never have survived in Japan for 1 year with nobody talking English, without me writing one letter a day. I became an expert in writing letters that were inspiring, that were comforting, that were meant to boost the morale. I have written that type of letter for 1 whole year, just to keep my wife engrossed in her research. And now she's back with her PhD. Okay, how much time do we have? I want now to switch to my last. Yeah, we have about 30 minutes, right?
Yes, we will still have an open forum, Dr. Maslog. So I'll
Okay,
probably
5
give you
minutes.
about
5
well,
minutes.
I was going to say 3 minutes, but go ahead. So
4
do we
minutes.
do we need to project your slides already so that you can have
Yeah,
reference?
yeah. No,
Or
before I
Hannah?
do that.
Okay, before that, go
I will
ahead.
tell you. So I decided, since I was writing books every year and I was selling them at a bargain price, so eventually I said, I will just accumulate the sales of my books into a fund, which I will give to the university. So now I have set up a trust fund for scholarships in communication at Silliman University, and all my income from my books go there. I have amassed about 500,000 pesos towards the trust fund, but I'm still ambitious. I want to add more as long as I live. On December 5, my 90th birthday, we will inaugurate the the book launching. We book launch my latest book, The History of Asian Mass Communication, and I have to cut my telephone call. And I will sign the memorandum of agreement with Silliman University to set up the trust fund for scholarships in journalism at Silliman University. And
Wow.
if you
Awesome.
want to give me a birthday gift, voluntary or voluntary, don't give it to me. Give it to the scholarship fund. And Marge will help you find a way to send it there. So thank
Yeah,
you very
wow.
much. I
Wow.
am very happy to be invited to speak now. Kindly, can you show me the list of my books?
Okay, go ahead. So thank you. There you go, Dr. Maslog. I was just going to say, like Dr. Braid, you at this point have chosen to give, particularly to the scholars of Silliman University.
list.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go to the other list.
Go to the other one. I think the previous slide, please. Hannah, there you go.
Pandemia is my latest book. It's all about that's my columns from SciDevNet. Science writing and climate change, very timely. We are now in the midst of a climate crisis. Rain here, fires there, and people do not know what to do. This book will tell you what. Never again, I think you know what I mean. Never again to martial law. And the other one, I am coming up with also with another book, no 30 jokes. I put it online and you will order. You can order it ahead of time. Jokes only. That's the title of the book. Okay, so yeah, I will put this on. It's in my blog. No, I have a blog, by the way. You visit it. I will send Marge my blog site. And so I will wind up here. Thank you very much again for listening. And I hope I am willing to be invited to talk on any topic about research and journalism anytime.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maslog. Thank you, Hannah. Let's move to the next slide because this is also a much awaited portion of our session where we will now open the floor for questions. And because our participants are so active and both in Facebook and in the Zoom room, I'm just going to go through all of this. I'm hoping that we still have time and we can ask our stalwarts to answer briefly, but definitely would like to hear from our participants. All right, let me begin from Dr. Rosario Baceleres. For Dr. Maslog, hi sir. I was listening to what you said about how you met Dr. Braid in Silliman. It seems these were things you did not mention in the history book of the SU College of Mass Communication, at least not as lengthy as what you have mentioned here. Am I right? So she just wants to ask, did you tell more stories here in comparison to to the book, Dr. Maslog? Seems like it.
Excuse me, I was distracted by the telephone. Will you kindly summarize that question again?
All right. Dr. Basileris is just asking asking if she's correct to say that you actually had more to say here in this virtual space in terms of meeting Dr. Braid and the like in comparison to the history book of the SU College of Mass Comm. Is that correct?
Maybe. And the reason is I am single-minded always. When I teach a course, I stick to the contents of the course. I do not regale my students with stories of my adventures and friends.
All right.
I'm conscious about the time.
All right.
And I do that only during socials.
All right. Thank you very much.
Rose. By the way, Rose is one of my co-authors.
I see.
This is also my apostleship. I get my students, former students, to develop the writing talents and get them as co-authors of my books. And I've done that in the case of Rose Basileres.
Yes.
Hi, sir.
There she is. So the true sense of mentoring, no? Thank you very much for that. All right, thank
Where are
you.
you, Rose?
Actually,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
will just
Rose,
draw,
nice to see you.
yes,
Hi,
yes.
sir.
All right,
Hello.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Rose. No, thank you, Dr. Maslog. Let's move to the next question or comment here from Divina A. Diokno. Hello, Dr. Braid. Always nice to see you again and learn about this lifelong friendship in communication you share with Dr. Maslog. It is not just endearing, but far-fetching. With this pandemic, when most students are learning from home, what can you say about the opportunities for learning modules and the weaknesses like the lack of hardware and slow internet connection for some students? Dr. Braid?
Yeah. Oh, hi, Divina, my former neighbor. Yeah. Yes. Actually, although I had been practicing distance learning, well, we've even given at AIJC several training programs for various private and state universities some time ago, no, sponsored by UNESCO. I still opt for face-to-face learning. Nothing like being able to exchange, face-to-face. But there are advantages, however, of distance learning in terms of well-developed and research materials, and that also provides opportunity for some of the um, well best researchers, best teachers to share the experiences and put them together in modules so that this is given out, which may not be possible in face-to-face learning. Now they are doing it more often, and I think this is enriching. So that's an advantage. But I agree with the disadvantages because it could be actually being immersed in technology can be addictive. We're now immersed. How many psychologists said we look at our cell phone 1,500 times a day? He just didn't say 1,000 times, which could be true. We refer to it. And I think this is happening among children. Technology is doing some harm. So we have to look at the negative consequences. I won't do it here because we don't have much time, but there is a lot of research done by psychologists, psychiatrists on the harmful effects of being exposed too much to technology. In the same time, there are advantages, as I have said. We all know the advantages. There is interaction. If you pursue interaction, you can pursue interaction. But it doesn't allow you to visit libraries, which is very important. Now, we have one of the lowest, as you know, now, international PISA rank as lowest in reading. So this is a sample, but there are many root causes. But again, and since some experts said we cannot possibly, the government cannot afford to provide a budget that is 4 times more, because that's the only way we can catch up with the developing, with even our neighbors, not just the global society, but even our neighbors in Asia. 4 times budget, maybe we can do it twice. And so what do we do in the meantime? The recommendation was that use peer-to-peer learning and use mentoring, which all depends interaction. So here we recognize the importance of, however, of online learning, but at the same time using for special.
Dr. Braid. All right. I'm not sure if Dr. Braid was dropped from the call, but I'm pretty sure she will come back. So I hope that Miss Divina is okay with the sharing of Dr. Braid from that end. We'll get back to her again once she's able to reconnect.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to, I hope I'm pronouncing the name properly, or Ellie Dinampo Lunzaga. Maayong hapon sa tanan. Thanks Space and PACMRI for today's conversation with the communication giants. Warm greetings from Central Mindanao University, Bukidnon. It is an honor to listen to Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog going down memory lane. I used to read only your thoughts on the pages of the books I bought, of course, with your autographs. It is my prayer that God will also sustain us and become tenacious like you. So God bless you both. Hi, Dr. Braid. You were dropped from the call for a few seconds, but you're back. And I just read some message from our Zoom room participants. But go ahead and end your statement. You were
No, I just said I ended there that
okay.
We must be able to try to return to normal and hopefully return to face learning.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you very much. And Miss Divina is also here, and she said she thanks you. No, she'd like to thank you for that. All right, I'll move on to read more in the chat box, and I hope again I'm pronouncing the name properly. Nurtimhar Shashaji. I just can't believe I'm now listening to a talk featuring the legends in communication and media studies, whose books have always guided me, books that I always looked for in the city library here in Zamboanga City. Wow, from Bukidnon to Zamboanga, we're nationwide. All right, whose books I found answer and comfort as I dealt with communication problems, as I was doing my undergrad in mass comm and until now a communication instructor. Endless thanks all the way from Zamboanga City. Wow. All right. So here we have our legends indeed, and they have acknowledged that that gratitude from you, Nur Timhar. All right, let's just move. I think this would be the last, at least in the chat box. Wow, Dr. Maslog, so great is your legacy. The future is really from the communication students. All right, and of course, we've shared your email, Dr. Maslog, because some are asking for it. All right, now allow me to this time proceed and read what we have in our live streaming in FB. From Olena Hill, thank you for all your hard work, doctors, for also imparting a lot of knowledge we all benefit from nowadays. From Lay Agcanas, Dr. Maslog and the Giants of Communication, thank you for letting us stand on your shoulders. Wow, ang tangkad namin dahil dyan, Dr. Maslog and Dr. Braid. From Tere Panzo, Dr. Maslog's book was the first book I've had as a reading in college, and same here as also a teacher in communication. And from Divina Diokno, oh, no, I think we've read this. This came from the Zoom. I'll move on to the next. Okay, I think, all right, our participant, Jay Eufemiano, quotes you, failure is part of the journey. I think this was Dr. Braid's statement. Oh, I think Dr. Braid is, I don't know if he was dropped from the call again. Very inspiring. It's a privilege to learn from your experiences, the living icons. From JC Sabonsolin, it's nice to hear insights from the legends of communication, inspiring thoughts. Thank you, Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. And from Miss Lunzaga, no, I read this already. This was in the Zoom room. Okay, from someone, Agnes, from Bicol University, no, Miss Agnes Nepomuceno. This is indeed a rare privilege to be an audience of our two communication gurus in the country and neighboring Asian countries, as well as with their stalwart contributions in the field. Now, there's a question for you, Dr. Maslog.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read this from Agnes still. Thank you for emphasizing the centrality of research in communication activities. Her question, where does research enter in the development projects cycle? such as planning, implementing, monitoring, and evaluation? Or is it in every phase of the process? And then she ends, Diyos mabalos and God bless. Dr. Maslog, on to you.
Yes, the answer is all of the above. It is in all the steps in the process. First of all, of course, before you tackle a problem, you have to do research on whether it is really a problem or not. Maybe it's just your idea that there is a problem. Maybe there is not. Second, maybe somebody has found a solution to that problem, and you are reinventing the wheel. So then you say it's worth starting. Nobody's done it before, so you do it, and then you will research on whether what you're doing is right, whether the process is correct, whether you're achieving the ends that you need, and then at the end you will say, you will ask yourself, did we do the right thing? Did it achieve what we? So it's long story short, it's the whole process.
Thank you.
Can you give me, let's say, before you wind up, maybe 1 minute to sum up my
Oh, yes,
my
most definitely. We'll get into that part where you will have your parting words, Dr.
Yeah.
Maslog, because I'd like to make sure that our participants viewing us in FB, and some of them we know, I'd like to just make sure that their comments are also read or questions are answered. So
Okay.
may I continue? All right.
Sure.
From Christine Clemencio, having two of the finest legends of communication share their lived experiences is indeed a rare opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. From Sharon De Los Reyes, thank you for the inspiration, Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. Thank you, PACE, for the event, and congratulations to the new board of PACE. Looking forward to more programs and webinar. And this is from our legend, Ramon Tuazon. Thank you for the inspiration, Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog. Communication education in the Philippines is blessed because of your many contributions. Thank you, PACE, for this event. Congratulations to the new board. Thank you, Sir Ramon. From Andrea Evangelista, Dr. Maslog's drive to produce many local native reference materials for Filipino students somehow reminds me of Dr. Zeus Salazar's Pantayong Pananaw. He's truly an inspiration. From Pilipina Benabiche, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, Kagurangan, nice hearing about how you live as an educator at your age, sirs and ma'ams. That at least completes what I have in my phone, and the gadgets that we are now able to use in the Zoom room. There are two more questions, I believe, or comments. All right, again from Lilibeth Galvez. Thank you to PACMRI. From Adrian Aguilar, wow, indeed, the living legends of communication. Salamat po ng marami. And finally, from Angeli Pizarro Monsanto, inspiring doctors. All right, at this point, I think that's all the time that we have. But before I call on our PACE President, Mark, for the closing remark, I'd like to give Dr. Maslog and Dr. Braid, as you said, a minute to just give your parting words as we end this very fruitful session. This is oral history indeed. And so I'll give the floor to Dr. Maslog, immediately followed by Dr. Braid. Go ahead, sir.
Shall we say ladies first or ladies last?
The birthday boy will be first. Yes.
Oh, okay. I think I will sum up my words of wisdom, quote unquote, on life after retirement. No? In 3 words. Give back and give forward. That's one phrase, because that will give meaning to your life.
Well said, Dr. Maslog. And I think we will all take that to heart. Dr. Braid, on to you. Dr. Braid, can you hear us? All right. I'm not sure if Dr. Braid is able to hear us or if
If not, could I add to that?
continue, please. And
Yeah.
continue, please.
I guess I need to say this with your indulgence.
Go
In my
ahead.
case, I give back in terms of what I know by writing the books. I give forward to the younger generation who will take over after we are done. Because what you give, no matter how modest, no matter how small, will be significant and important. And what you give will benefit the generations to come after you.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And again, I hope that our Dr. Braid, could you hear us? Dr. Braid? Okay. We're not sure if Dr. Braid,
Yeah.
although, yeah, there you go.
Our internet is a little unstable,
That's right. Parting words
you know,
before
but
we
we are
ahead.
giving parting words that, yes, I agree with Dr. Maslog that communication research or communication in general must be a partner in national development. So it must be that decisions in government and the decisions at the local level are based on good and on participation of people. And this participation means exchange. Final analysis, when you can't have nation building without communication.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Can I
Go
insert
ahead.
an anecdote to end
Go-
the session?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Maslog.
Okay, we participated in the Parliament of the Streets, EDSA, in 1986. My wife and I were there and we're marching with the millions. And we saw the tanks. When we approached one of the tanks, and my wife talked to the driver of the tank. Those of you who are old enough will visualize that. Imagine this hard-boiled tanks and their drivers. And my wife had the audacity to approach one of them. We were surrounding the tanks. And my wife was convincing them to get down from their tanks and join us. And they stopped and they listened to her. So I was behind her all the time, and I was egging her on. I said, "Go ahead, honey, do that. Talk to the tank drivers and convince them to get down." And so I later on, when I was lecturing to my students and different audiences, I always tell them, the lessons from that incident is that behind every brave woman is a wise man.
Dr. Maslog, so character. This is you indeed. All right, so that ends our session with our stalwarts this afternoon. I'd like to call on at this point PACE President Mark Lester M. Chico for the closing remarks. On to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Marge. And first of all, marami pong salamat sa lahat ng ating mga nakasama ngayong hapon. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and congratulations for being here. But also at the same time, I'd like to extend PACE's warmest thanks to PACMRI for inviting us to be a co-host of this event as we celebrate our 46th anniversary. Sir Chris, happy anniversary po sa atin. Kayo ang pioneer ng PACE. And if I may just share, I am truly, truly honored because you are here. And I am the third president coming from UPLB, and the second one was Sir Chris Maslog, the first one being Nora C. Quebral. And yung nararamdaman ko, I am honored, but at the same time, I am humbled by this
About Mark Polo, you
opportunity.
Marco
Yeah,
Polo,
yes, sir. Marco Polo is UPLB, yes. But of course, he's representing the La Salle University, DASMA. But, you know, Sir Chris, maraming salamat. And to Dr. Braid, ma'am, thank you for your wisdom and for sharing everything that you have in your bucket, no? As we learned a lot from you, from the two of you. You know, Ma'am March, you did a great job at moderating. I thank you for allowing us to be part of this conversation and for your leadership as well, no, in putting these two together. If I may just share as well, in 2013, and we have a slide for this, I had the same opportunity of moderating a session with the communication rock stars. And during that time, there were 5 of you. We had Dr. Nora Quebral. We had Dr. Felix Librero. We had Kaluwi Tabing. And now, we have the 2 living legends of communication. Sino po ba ang hindi kikilabutan sa pagkakataon na ito? I may be maybe the 4th or the 5th or maybe the 6th generation. Kung ang nagsimula ay kayo po, Sir Chris and Dr. Braid. And we are inspired. We are motivated to continue working together as communication and media sector, so that we will have that particular place as we transition our country, our communities into the next generation. Ito po yung napaka-importanteng parte na ako personal sa akin na karera ko. And, you know, I would say this will never happen again. But we thank PACMRI, PACE for putting together, again, our living legends in communication and media. And of course, Sir Hernan, marami pong salamat. I hope that there will be more activities that we will work together, where we will work together with PCS. And again, I would also like to invite all of you to be part of PACE as we continue our journey, towards our 50th year. These communication organizations are not mutually exclusive. We can be part of each organization. And all these is for the strength of our sector. So once again, thank you very much for coming over. Together, let's push for policies that are responsive for ourselves, for our communities. Let's adapt to changes and be strong enough to face the challenges. Let's continue to care for each other as one communication and media family, and empower our sector by providing opportunities for each other. Together, we are PACE, we are PACMRI, we are PCS, we are one Philippines. Magsama-sama po tayo at magtulong-tulong. Marami pong salamat at magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much. Wow, that's well said. That's really well said. Thank you very much, Mark. At this point, I'd like to request Hannah to flash again our our screen, so that I will now share, or someone will share in our group, in our chat box, the evaluation link. Know that for those who would like to receive their certificates, you have to complete the evaluation after the event, and the form must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. of October 27, 2021. At this point, I'd like for us to once again just be in the same space. Let's stop sharing first our screen. And then if we can just click your gallery view, try to see each other again, and in this virtual space, enjoy each other as communication practitioners, students, professors. Let's be one indeed. Our organizations are not, as already shared by Mark, not mutually exclusive, but we will be together as we move forward and find that in the field of communication in the Philippines, we will be standing on the shoulders of our great leaders here in this virtual room, our stalwarts, our rock stars. Thank you, Dr. Braid, and thank you, Dr. Maslog. It was a pleasure moderating the session. It's a pleasure for how active our participants are, both in Zoom and in FB. At this point, I'd like to just remind everyone that there's an NCRC, or a National Communication Research Conference, coming up on November 12 and 13, 2021. So please do register, and that's our next activity where we will see each other again. All right, at this point, let's just say bye-bye. I don't know why all right, sorry. I thought I was about to read that. But I guess if you wish to just turn on your cameras and your microphones and say bye to each other, this is where we end our session until we see each other again. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Dr. Braid and Dr. Maslog, I hope you're able to see what's in the chat box. They continue to say thank you to you. So please just read through. If you're still in the call, just read through before we close our Zoom meet. All right. So we're just, thank you very much. Dr. Hernan, how many participants did you actually have?
We have over 70 in Facebook and over 60 here. So good crowd. Over 130 people stayed.
Yes, and
Even more because we're live on both pages. So
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
All right,
Almost
that's
200, in fact.
and
Very good.
and the videos will be there, and we can always go back. As Dr. Hernan said, this is there's already a recording of the oral history of our great communication practitioners here in the person. Ay, wala na si Dr. Maslog. All right, siguro maraming meeting. Dr. Braid, maraming salamat po until we see each other.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hernan, salamat. Mark,
Salamat.
congratulations.
Bye. Hi, Mark. Hi, Ellen.
Closing.
Hernan, salamat, Sir Hernan.
Salamat, Mark.
Congratulations to you.
Congratulations po.
Very
Thank you.
good organization. Marge and Hernan,
Salamat po.
and it's good for you, Mark. Thank you for bringing back that memory of that event. That was interesting.
Yes, ma'am. 8 years ago, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Grabe.
Keep that photo. Anyway, it's
I will
preserved.
send it to you, ma'am. I
No,
tagged you on
I
your
think
Facebook.
I think I have it
Oh,
in
yeah.
my somewhere.
Opo.
Yeah.
All right.
So, well, it's nice to see all of you.